Hello, welcome to the show. This is Wes. I'm doing another painting video. This one is a watercolor of a duck, just in time for Halloween. So if you're going as a duck or any number of other feathered friends, this one's for you, I guess. With watercolor, you're always striving to leave the whites and the highlights that show up in the image as the white of the paper. So with a white duck, it's almost a cheaty way to go because, you know, a lot of the main subject matter you're just going to avoid. But white ducks, just like black dogs or other animals with solid colors, they all have shadows and highlights, this sort of thing. So as I'm doing here, I'm going through and kind of finding those shapes from the reference photo where the shadows lie. And it's a delicate balancing act, really, because you have not a great deal of contrast between the shadows on the duck and the highlights on the duck. They're both white. It's just a matter of degrees. Much more contrast between the beak and the legs, the orange, colors, and everything else. So in this one, I wasn't sure how much I was going to dwell on it, how far along I was going to bring the painting, whether I was going to make the background very dark or just dark enough to show the duck. But I just kind of kept going until the painting became what I thought was a good, end point. Once I added the orange of the beak and the legs here, I started, realizing it would make a nice image. It has a certain, storybook quality, like a children's storybook. I don't consider myself very good at watercolors in particular. I can manage usually just, kind of basing it on what I know about painting in general, but no expertise in the medium. Just kind of do the best I can, and if it turns out well, then I'm very happy. I really need to get my hair dryer out to dry in between layers of paint, because even with a watercolor, even though it dries pretty quickly, I found myself getting a little too over anxious, and like here, I left the white around the bill of the duck because I didn't want it to bleed because it was still wet, for the orange to bleed out into the background. And if I'd waited longer between layers, it would have dried and I wouldn't have had to worry about that. But again, watercolor is very forgiving in that regard as well, because the viewer kind of recognizes those little mistakes of the liquid as, a quaint aspect of the medium, an acceptable technique, even. The techniques I did pull off in this painting well are of the background, a lot of variation in the grass, and the greens and the greenish blues, and I suppose I barely got the shadows on the duck right. I could have done that a little better, but it was okay. I didn't forget about them. The best part was probably the rendering of the duck itself, getting the shape right, which that's not a big deal. It's not a complicated shape, and they're, pretty lumpy anyway. So if you're off a little bit on the duck, I don't think it's a big deal. Towards the end, I do get a little dark on the background, and that's something I could do better in the future. Try to do fewer layers of paint, although there's no rule that says you have to do it in one shot, but if I'd gone darker to begin with, I could have done it in 1 or 2 layers rather than the 3, 4, or 5 layers at parts that I did do. Because even at this stage you can see the duck just well enough. It doesn't need more contrast in the image. But I did pursue that. Did enjoy painting this and these other ones. Whenever it works out, I really enjoy the medium. I definitely don't have a style yet in terms of watercolor. I'm much more comfortable with my style in acrylic paint. But the only way to really get there with it is to practice and just get more experience with it. This was a fun painting to do. I'm glad I did it. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you have any future suggestions or constructive criticism. If you enjoyed the video, click like at the bottom. It helps my channel grow. Have a happy Halloween. Thanks for watching.